Dude, don't you ever buy these, dude. I don't know what I was thinking.
You're eating every one of them, aren't you?
Huh?
You're eating every single one of them, aren't you?
Dude, and like I'm gonna do it on camera. It's gonna be you're just gonna see me over here munching all the whole time.
That's why he has the name Fat Todd.
Mm-hmm.
How was the Amazon, Andrew?
It was the Amazon. It was the Amazon. I mean, it was definitely, when we talk about like preparing for tournaments and all the things that we do to get ready and all that stuff. Well, I didn't do any of that stuff for the Amazon. Didn't watch a video. I didn't look at anything. I didn't really do anything. All I was told was like, buy these gigantic chopper top waters, and it's all you need. 7.5 foot heavy action rods, big reels, big line, the whole 9 yards. Well, that wasn't really the case. I should have paid a little bit more attention. I thank goodness I took some sexy dogs with me because that's literally what I caught every fish on.
Really?
Yeah, couldn't catch them on that chopper.
You think they're getting used to that stuff?
No, we kind of were at subject to a little bit of bad information, I would say, to put it kindly. I mean, the deal was we just kind of got the raw end of a stick a little bit. We were supposed to have this big private area all to ourselves, and it just didn't work out for a number of reasons, from COVID to someone got murdered in a village next to it, and they cut the water off. I mean, it's just a whole big. I mean, like, dude, I could go on for days about what happened, but long story short, I did catch them on Sexy Dog. The water came up where we were fishing, so they weren't coming out of the woods eating that chopper like they would typically eat it. So you kind of had to convince them to come out with that walking bait. A lot of fish got caught on like a 90 size whopper plopper. I mean, just like stuff that you would not ever expect to go to the Amazon to catch them on. That's what they caught them on. And I literally took 3/4 ounce spinner baits, Sexy Dogs, those big wood chopper things, and like 12 swim jigs, 1/2 ounce swim jigs. And
yeah, weren't you gonna go down there with a spinning rod?
Oh, I did, and it got shattered in like the first 3 days.
By a fish?
No, by somebody using it. And I won't go into any more details, but it wasn't me.
Somebody using it, huh?
Yeah. So
did you catch any piranhas?
I did. I caught a couple of piranhas. I hooked a big Arapama. It got off. Scott caught a big Arapama. Billy caught a big Arapama. Actually, the video I just got done editing. Scott caught the biggest one of the trip right there, and it was a gigantic one. Overall, like, I mean, looking at it, I mean, it was honestly a really good trip. My biggest of the trip was an 11-pounder. Caught on a Sexy Dog. I literally took one bone. Hard knock Sexy Dog. They would not eat the regular rattling one. I could only catch them on the hard knock. It's so weird. Like, I could throw the rattling one. I had like 5 bone colored of that one, and I had 1 bone colored hard knock, and it was like 5-1. Like, it wasn't even close. They just wanted that single knock. Doop, doop, doop. And yeah, I mean, if I went back, I'd probably change a few things. I'd probably be a little bit more prepared, because some of that I blame on myself for just not being prepared. I didn't watch any videos. I didn't really do anything. I'd have probably taken some different rods just to kind of have some options. I mean, I literally had 3 bait casting rods with Super Duty 300s on them, and they were all 7.5 foot flipping sticks. And that makes it really difficult to throw like a 90 size whopper plopper that I borrowed from somebody on the trip. It just makes it a little bit more difficult. But overall, good trip. Got a lot of great footage, and not just fishing, just cutting through the jungle, jumping logs. I know Hallman, like, I don't know if you got to watch my first video, but I know I did you proud going back up in the jungle and stuff.
I saw some of the stuff where you guys were jumping and cutting and pushing over the top of stuff.
Yeah. I was like, Hallman would be really proud of this.
I've been down there too, and it was a trip of a lifetime, but I think that the whole thing down there has gotten so commercialized, and they've got a lot of guys in there that don't know what the original guys knew that were in there. And I think that, if you don't hit that thing right with the river falling and down low, the river's got to be low, and the lower it is, the better. That's what that thing's all about. The best stories I've heard were guys pick up their boat and walk across dry land to get one of those backwaters. The river's gotten so low, and that's when they catch them really, really good. But you got to have the guides that know where those fish are.
And that was part of the problem too. The section of guides that or selection of guides that we had
Mhm.
were all used to this one private big. And then when I say private, it was like a big ass creek that we were going to have all to ourselves. But they were very well versed in that one creek. Well, then we take them 25 miles past where they're comfortable,
Yep.
and it's just like literally the second day that I was there, I'm telling the guy like, let's go over there, let's go here, because he had no clue. He was just like, oh, okay, let's do
Yeah,
this.
and we ran into that too. And
No.
I think that was another thing that I noticed is, and I've noticed that on a lot of out of country trips is like those guys are not used to guys like us. They're used to guys just catch fish too, and they're all excited. And we're like,
Yeah, no.
that ain't what we came here for, bro. That ain't
Yeah,
catching them.
No.
When I went down to El Salto, when I was in high school, I had helped a guy out and he won a tournament. Just so happened it was Ron Speed with Ron Speed Adventures.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
wow.
didn't know it at the I was just some high school kid. I didn't know. So he gave me and my dad a free trip down there. And like you hear stories, right? Like 100, 150 fish a day,
Mhm.
all
Oh, yeah.
10-pounders, when we get down there and it was really tough. We were catching 75 to 100 fish a day, and everyone else that was down there was catching like 30. Of course, they were all worming and doing this stuff, and we were cranking trees and stuff.
Mhm.
Like no one else was going out there throwing a small crank, not a small, but a shallow running crankbait, like bumping them through trees. And that's what we did. But everyone, like you said, everyone was kind of happy with what they were catching. I was like, in fish finding mode to a degree. And I was like, man, what about over there? But like they went to the same places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't fish really anything deep because I was sitting here going, man, I could like, what about it? Took me about a day or two until I was like, I want to go over there and try this. And I kind of had to convince him to do some stuff because I'm like, hey, look, at this point, I don't care if I catch any more. Like, it's freaking Mexico.
I just want to catch a big one. Yeah.
Yeah, like we'll catch some. Like this place is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Let's go somewhere. I don't care if you've never been there before. I mean, it's kind of like going to Falcon or Amstead when it was good. You're never going to go someplace bad.
Yeah.
So you might look up and figure something out.
Well, and that's exactly how it was for us. And I mean, about the second or third day, like I started really dialing in kind of what we needed to do. And I mean, we made the best of what it was. But the big problem is every single day, it just goes to show you the captain was like completely lost because they were really banking on that one area where we were going to go catch them. And every day we moved like 5 to 10 miles to another area every single day. So like you'd get accustomed to an area, be like, okay, tomorrow I'm gonna go blast them in here. Well, then the next day we'd be 5 to 10 miles up the river, and it'd be completely different conditions, 100% different. One day it'd be the dirtiest water you've ever seen. The next day it'd be the cleanest water you ever seen. One place it's low, one place it was just weird, man. Like that was probably the hardest, like trying to pattern like really how to catch them. It was really difficult, but I did learn this. So if anybody's watching this ever goes, if the water is higher, the sun's out, they're going to be in that forest. No questions asked. So how the water gets high at Rayburn? Like you got to weave in and out of the trees the entire time to get bit at all. But if it's cloudy, you got to get on the outside edge of the trees and you're throwing a walking bait down the edge and you'll catch fire out of them. But you can't catch them up in the forest when it's cloudy. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Like, I mean, it was very set. Like you did not get bit when it's cloudy in the trees, like at all. So, but I thought it was cool though.
It's the middle of nowhere flying into that place, isn't it?
Man, I'm telling you right now.
I know it.
We had a connecting flight in Sao Paulo, and I'd go there again. That place was amazing. But now all I did was see the airport, but like you could just tell like it was like one of those destination type cities. And then we flew into Manaus, and I would never in my life want to go back to Manaus ever. We drove through Manaus, and the one thing about it from a different point is you kind of get to see how the other side lives a little bit.
Yeah.
Like that's like true.
You
I mean,
probably stayed a night
hard.
in Manaus, didn't you? Coming and going? Did you stay?
No,
a night
we stayed in the boat the whole time. Like we were supposed to stay a night in the Manaus, and they actually gave us an extra day of fishing because it was so bad. And they were trying to make up for it, and it was
I think we stayed the night we got into Brazil. We stayed there, and then the night before we flew out, we stayed there. And they took us to a steakhouse, Brazilian steakhouse, a real one, and It was good. I mean, I didn't have a problem with it, but yeah, Manassas is a big city. It's got big city issues.
Yes, it does. But hey, Todd and I had a conversation yesterday. Let's change gears a little bit. Todd and I had a conversation yesterday about you, and I'm gonna let Todd just dive right on into it because you've got some issues right now, Hallman, and we need to hear your side of the story. Todd, let's hear it.
Yeah, I mean, so every once in a while, we got to call one of our buddies. Uh, it'll happen sometimes after, a bad 6 months of fishing or, maybe you're winning a tournament, and you break down, you're going to win and stuff. Sometimes that's Hallman, but most of the time, what we really, really get ourselves worked up about and worried about is anytime OU loses. But this wasn't just OU losing. This was OU losing, not a game, not a year. They might have lost 5 years of games in one decision.
Yeah. By one man.
By one man.
Yeah. It's like, dude, it's almost like your wife. It's like getting a divorce almost. It's what it's been like. Like she came home and was like, I don't think I want to live with you anymore. And you're like, what?
She didn't even cheat on you. She just like, I'm over you.
I'm out. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just out. You don't really get a reason why or nothing. And it's been bad, dude.
And I'm taking all my kids with me.
I honestly, I know more about college football right now than probably half the sports analysts that have YouTube channels. More than that, the YouTube guys are terrible. Like I watch some of them now and I'm like, nothing. Why am I watching this? You're an idiot.
Talk about that.
Speculation, just, they just talk and they don't have a clue what they're talking about. I don't know that we'll ever know the real reasons why Riley just pulled states, but college football's messed up right now. Hey, I saw last night where Texas is taking the NIL to a whole nother level. And if you guys don't know, NIL is name, image, and likeness, which is basically a ruling from the U.S. Supreme Court that college athletes can be paid off their name, image, and likeness. Anyway, so Texas has put together a booster club. I think it's called Hearts for Horns. And every offensive lineman there starting next year will make $50,000 cash. So pro football has started in college football. That's what's going to happen is these boosters are going to put together packages for all the football players to make money to where they're not left out. Because a lot of quarterbacks and stuff, including y'all's guy from Texas that went to Ohio State, hit the transfer portal. I guess you've seen that. You're number one recruit in the nation last year. So transfer portals are changing everything for everybody. Realignment, conferences is changing everything for everybody. Coaches leaving universities such as Oklahoma and Notre Dame that they never used to leave for other programs is happening for stupid amount of money. I mean, it's just insane. I mean,
Well, that's
100 and something million to be coaching football. I mean, where are we really getting in society?
Despite all the
We should have gone into football coaching instead of fishing. I can tell you all that right now. We should be college football coaches.
Like the problem with what you're seeing now, and if I bring this up, you'll get so many different perspectives, right? But what I'll say is there was a reason why there was a ton of people that didn't ever want college players to make money.
Oh, absolutely.
And I completely understand those. Now there's a lot of other people. My wife played college ball, right? And so when she was up there, like me and her, this is big stuff. I mean, I understood this, but we couldn't go fish a fishing tournament together because she would win money. But that's not the big deal. That's not the big deal. It's you can have peanut butter in your locker room, but not jelly. Or you could have, like, there were so many of these stupid rules that were just ridiculous about some of the food being in the locker room and this and that. And like all these things that you can tell were just the dumbest things to protect this other stuff. And I think a lot of people were just trying to get common sense rules in there for like players, like, hey, make sure a college football player isn't eating on, $22 a day for food. Like, make sure that kid is being taken care of, where he can at least nothing crazy, but like he can eat and he's not having to like worry about what he's eating. And I'm not saying everyone's like that, but some were. But they knew when it all came down to it, if they ever opened that door wasn't just going to creak open. It was going
it's
to blow
Pandora's
wide
box.
open. And it was,
Yeah.
and it was going to, and the teams that will benefit, it'll be like the New York Yankees, the Red Sox. It will be these certain teams, and everyone else is just going to be, so some dude from UT, some offensive lineman. It's great, man. I'm happy for him. He makes 50 grand. And then some dude that might be just as talented going to, Baylor's making 2.
Right.
And it's just
and some of this may have been Lincoln Riley's idea, because of the fact of title of NIL, because Los Angeles has 38 million people or whatever it has, in its metropolitan area, more than Oklahoma has in the whole state, which I think Oklahoma's state's like 3.8 million. So there's obviously money there. And if you wanted to start paying athletes, then those big places would be able to afford it. But where all this is going to run into eventually, it's coming. So just like you're talking about your wife playing college soccer or volleyball, I got your daughter mixed up with your wife there for a second. Title IX is going to come into effect. So, right now, the point that you're making is that some guy plays football here and can't be paid as much as a guy playing football here. Well, then it's going to get into, the quarterbacks makes more than the offensive lineman. None of this is a problem, but when it becomes man versus woman and the men are making money in football because football raises more revenue, even though they're not going to see it that way. You know how this country works right now with politics. They want 1 for 1, right? Like it's almost like communism. So even though women's volleyball brings in 500 people if they play a big game, they're going to want them paid the same. So Title IX is where this thing's really going to get messy. And you got to start paying female athletes at scholarship sports. It's going to get messy, dude.
And here's the funny thing. And so if you ever want to see someone that's really for women, like my wife was a college volleyball player. She was Southern Conference Player of the Year, went into strength coach. So she was a strength coach for like 8 years. That she was a GA there. They didn't even have an assistant. They liked her, the head coach and everything. They all liked her so much that they made a job for her and made her an assistant, became an assistant there. She does not do that anymore for obvious reasons. And I was one of the ones that told her to quit. I told her to quit something that she loved, and she's better at that than anything she's a vice principal now, but she's better at strength coach than she is probably anything she's ever going to be. And she won't do it. And she won't do it basically because of being a woman. So I am not that she can't be a woman and be a strength coach, but I saw her with the good old boy system get absolutely shot down. By higher ups. And because she was, everyone wanted her to be the head coach, and they basically told her they didn't want a woman being a head coach. I'm probably not even supposed to be talking about this. I don't really care. But I saw it. I saw how they treated certain ones. Now she got plenty of job offers from other men in the sport that didn't not have a problem with a woman being a strength coach. Like didn't even see it that way. Like there was tons of guys and coaches and men and the players. I'll tell you one thing, the players absolutely loved her. They would all say that she was probably harder than all the other strength coaches combined. But man, you get one of those guys that looks at it that way. And when I bring this up is you're going to have programs in Texas that has like Texas volleyball that is freaking making it top 5 in the country every year, not doing nothing. And you got college football who they can't even make get 5 wins in a season. And they're and how can you blame a team like volleyball or soccer or whoever it might be, like being number top 5 team in the country, and you're looking at football going, you guys suck.
Well, all these public schools like Texas, Oklahoma State, Ohio State, Oklahoma, they're all publicly, federally funded. They're public schools, and they're state funded. So that means that they're taking tax dollars, and Title IX is going to be a problem for them, man. It's coming. It's coming. When this money starts getting passed around to these football teams, it's coming.
And don't get me wrong, like I understand why football's getting it. Like,
Yeah, we
not
all
me.
do, but it won't matter.
Yeah.
It won't matter. Well, yeah, I'm only bringing up the point of view from other people because like they're going, like how there's going to be like I'm bringing up the thing of what Holman just said. The problem's coming, and this is why the problem's coming. Regardless of whether you like it or not, it's coming. I mean, they're going to like come unglued. And
does it surprise any of the three of us that the Longhorns are leading the spear of this? I mean, like,
no.
I mean, they can be the downfall of all of college football. I can see that university doing that too.
Absolutely.
Well, I know when I saw the news of Lincoln Riley, my first instinct was to call Holman and text Holman and make sure he was okay. Because, the deal is Todd doesn't really watch college football, could care less about college football. Holman and I'm
at fishing tournaments and 9-year-old soccer tournaments.
Hey, I did forget about football last week. I was at Table Rock and I literally walked into a restaurant on Saturday evening and the SEC championship game was on. And I had forgotten that it was even freaking Saturday and it was awesome. It was awesome.
We've done enough college football. I want to hear about the Table Rock. Wait, Table Rock and you were at Table Rock. So like, I still didn't even know what you were at Table Rock for. So I kind of do.
We went early in the week.
Johnny Morris invited him in. He was like, "Hey, come on, Holman. Come on, Holman."
So Johnny had just gotten done with his $1 million tournament, like the week before, and all those guys had been up there. And no, we had an OBT meeting. It's Mike Valster's sales group and all of his salesmen and different people that work for him. They represent Gamakatsu and Spro and Big Bite and a bunch of companies that I'm affiliated with. Do what?
Sunline.
Yeah.
Oh, my little Sunline in there.
Sunline. Anyway, it's basically just an end of the year. They have an end of the year business sales meeting, and they have that on Tuesday. He flies everybody in, and then he brings in a bunch of his fishermen. Panger went up there with us. Jeremy Lawyer was up there with us. AOY was up there with us. Michael Neal. Anyway, it's just a good time. And then those sales guys get to pick and choose who they do some little, I don't know, some type of competition that they choose each year to give them pecking order. And then it's basically like a pickup game of football. You pick your team. And so they pick their partners, and then we fish a 2-day tournament, Thursday and Friday. So I fished that. Obviously with Lawyer and some of those guys in the field, Justin McClellan, Mike McClellan, we got some locals up there, but we finished fourth in that deal. Lawyer blew it out. He had almost 20 pounds the first day and like 16 or 17 the second day. And then on Saturday and Sunday, totally not affiliated with that, there was a 100-boat pro. I don't know what they wanted to call it, but it's called Oak Outdoors. It was the first one they'd ever put on. This was a cool deal. This is something that we all should talk about or think about. They put a 100-boat max on the field. It was a $400 entry fee, and it was like a pro elite tournament. So there was no co-anglers. And no co-anglers. You fished by yourself in your own boat all day long. And it was a 2-day event. First place was $10,000, and they paid 20 spots. So, out of 100 boats, that was a cool tournament. And to be able to fish by yourself all day long for 2 days, that was cool. I enjoyed that part. Obviously, it kind of brought the best of the best that live up there in the Ozarks, and it was fun. I finished 30th in that event. Caught them really good both days. Just never could get a big bite, like catch 10, 12, 15 keepers a day and cull them all day long and have 12, 13 pounds. Same thing as Lawyer had. The guy had 20 pounds first day, and yes, maybe 37. He had 17 the second day.
Know him?
Didn't. Cody Huff had a 20-pound bag the second day. Cody finished third, I believe. I didn't know the guy. Robbie Dotson knew him.
Robbie was there?
No, Robbie didn't come over there, but didn't surprise me if he would have. James Watson fished. I went and stayed at Watson's house on Saturday night. He and I fished that event. But anyway, it was enjoyable, fishing a pro elite style format where there wasn't a co-angler, but nobody in the boat. That was cool.
How'd you catch them?
Caught them live scoping in like 65 to 80 foot of water. That's how everybody was catching them. The guys that were in the top, that's how they were all catching them. And I don't mean like 65, 80 foot deep and the fish were in 40. I mean like the fish were in 65 to 85 and it would be 150 to 200 foot deep. They were all just involved around the bait balls and standing
wow.
standing timber that's in that lake that's underneath the water,
Yeah.
It was a really fun way to do it. I'd gone up last year and done the OBT tournament, and we'd caught them that way. And man, you talk about the evolution of fishing. So it was just like in 1 year last year when we were up there doing it, hardly anybody was doing it. Hardly anybody. I mean, Jeremy Lawyer was in that tournament, lives up there, and he wasn't doing it. He's throwing a rock crawler, wiggle ward on a bank. But just in 1 year, how there was nobody out there last year. And then this year, like even locals, I mean, they don't even know what they're doing, but they're out there trying, hunting and pecking, and they've got live scope turned on and they know the fish are there. So it's amazing the evolution of fishing, how quick it changes when something gets figured out and talked about, and how fast they all get out there on it.
Agreed.
It's crazy to me because there's going to be times where, and it'll always be like this, I guess, but man, it's crazy. Like, those fish used to sit out there for months with a break, never getting caught. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, I remember Scott Martin talked about the Alabama rig when he was opposed to it. He was like, man, there's a type of fish that gets out there in open water and just kind of like is not messed with, and they just sit there and like they do their own thing, and maybe they push up shallow and you catch one. He said that's kind of what the deal is, but it's crazy how I'm sure back in the day you go rock crawling around, and maybe catch you 12, 13 pounds and do good. And then days you wouldn't, and you'd go, man, fishing just wasn't good today, and 50 years, those fish were all out there, getting.
The amazing thing is I roomed with Mike McClellan, and Mike and I were talking. And of course, Mike's lived up there his whole life. Mike's in his 50s, and Mike still wants to go throw the rock crawler. That's what he wants to do. And there's no telling how many 20-pound bags he's weighed in. And he would come in at night and he'd be like, damn it, Holman, how do y'all keep catching those bags? He said, I go up there on the bank and I throw it on the best stretches that there are on this lake, and I can get 1 or 2 bites. He's like, if I get a bite, it's a good fish. It's a 3.5, 4 pounder, but like there's nothing up there. It's like the Dead Sea. And it's almost, he swears there's not as many fish up on the bank as there used to be. Now we're talking just about Table Rock alone, right? We're not talking about other lakes, but he can't get bit.
I believe that, but here's the crazy part, with all of us, we would all kind of get around, and this was like the one thing, and I'll say it now because maybe it doesn't matter. We'd all look around each other. Home and me were really good about doing it. We'd look at each other and smile and go, let them all out there off that bank, man. Yeah. And it's going to be more for us.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, Holman, it doesn't seem like there's more for us.
No.
And I don't, and I agree with Mike. I don't understand why that you got less people sometimes fishing the bank, and yet you don't, it's not gotten it's gotten worse. And that makes no sense to me. I can't figure that one out.
There's so much bait. I mean, like early in that week before I just beat on my fish for not ever, the first day of that OBT tournament, it was a 2-guy deal. He's standing on the front deck with me, but dude, I'm telling you, we caught 20 to 24. I mean, we caught 24 keepers, not counting all the 13 inchers and 12, 14 inchers. It's got to be a 15 incher to be a keeper, Table Rock. So a lot of 14 and a half. I don't know how many we went through, a lot. And, and that was a discussion I had with McClellan. He's like, how many fish you catch? And I mean, I already knew, like, I don't even want to tell him the truth because I can already tell he's, down in the dumps. And I'm like, dude, I don't know. It was a lot. He's like, how many's a lot? I'm like, over 20. Oh my God. Like there was just so many fish out there, but anyway.
Well, but I mean, we look at it, and it's in the fall, that fall to winter transition, and the fish are moving a lot anyway. But to Todd and your point, as it gets warmer in the spring and those people are still out there trying to live scope, still trying to do that thing, and we're up there on the bank flipping and fishing shallow, we have them come to us at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, they're kind of moving around. They're chasing bait. They're doing that weird fall thing. Sometimes they get bait hardcore out offshore, and sometimes they get on bait up shallow, and it just kind of depends on the year. I've seen it on Table Rock where you better be in 1 to 2 foot of water right now, throwing a top water and just smoke on them. And it's just kind of a weird dynamic. Every year is different.
Here's what's crazy is that, like, so without saying too, like, so I've been on a couple lakes around here. I had to go do some stuff for a show and some other things. And so I've actually spent a little bit of time. And grass is our little factor down here, right? Like grasses are, when you have those fall championships like we used to have, like most of the times you go to these lakes in the fall and it gets pretty tough because of that. Our grass down here eliminates that because they live in the grass. And so you can always catch them shallow.
Except for you're losing your grass at Rayburn right now.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's coming back though. I mean, there's a lot more. It's a lot more of it. But what's crazy is I got two other lakes that is just chock full of grass, like phenomenal. And for 20 years, it's just good. And I went out there the other day and it's not good. And yet, like you said, I've never seen the amount of fish out there, not necessarily deep, just away from the grass.
Mhm.
And I'm just going, and I know there's a lot of bait out there. I get it. And I'm not saying they're not in the grass. It's weird how like all of these lakes are like doing the exact same.
Dude, I swear to God, the fish at Table Rock are on bait and they're bait related. So like wherever you see big bait balls, there's bass around. And I pulled into a pocket on Sunday that I had fished on Wednesday earlier that week. And there was no bait. Like I couldn't find it. It was all at the bottom was about 50, 60 foot deep up there. I mean, 60 foot deep. That's where the bait was, but it wasn't there. And so I started just idling, coming out of the pocket, and I kept going, and I kept going, and I kept going. I mean, I'm out there in the middle of this giant, basically the middle of the lake. It's 150, 160 foot deep. The bait is literally between 85 and 100. And I'm sitting there looking at it going, well, surely, why would they? As soon as I turn on my live scope and put it on and go down there, yep, they're down there. They're down there in 100 freaking feet of water. I can see them moving in it. I'm like, this is insanity.
To Todd's point, as far as like why the fish aren't in the grass, Todd, you and I talked about it the other day. Part of the deal is it just hadn't gotten cold. Water temp has not gotten cold enough here. But if you think about, Todd, you'll think about this whenever I tell you, we can look at some of our best days shallow in the grass on Rayburn, on other lakes around in the area. And we have some bang up days, like where you catch 40 or 50, great, bunch of 4 to 5 pounders, whatever it may be. We've had those days. You and I've had those days together. But I think we tend to forget sometimes how many bad days we had in there where we had like 8 bites, 9 bites. And it was one of those that we chalked up to like, fishing's kind of weird. But with live scope, I feel like it's changed literally all of us to some degree. Because at this point, anybody that uses it at least, it's changed us to enough of a degree that instead of go pounding it out in the grass literally the entire day, we're like, we'll do it for an hour or two and we're like, this ain't happening. We'll stroll over there to a point and see like 20 of them sitting there on live scope and we'll start firing and catching them. And then you just kind of forget about the grass.
Well, yeah, but I'm still a grass man at heart. So like,
I get it.
I'm telling you, I had to go fish shallow the other day.
Yeah.
You know why I had to go fish? Like I had to.
know.
So I did. I pounded it out in the grass, and then nothing. But in everyone wants to say fall and this and that. So I'll tell a story. Years and years ago, I went out there. It was in November. Water was getting cold, and I was like, and I hadn't been home in a while, and I went and fished this lake, and I'm like, I'm going to crush them. Like, you know how, like very rarely, but I'm like, I could tell it was the day to go crush them. I went out there and I threw a rattle trap and some stuff around the grass in November, and I had caught one fish in like 5 hours. Yeah. And my buddy Brent Broussard called me up. He's like, hey man, it was like lunchtime or something, and he's like, man, he was already mad. He's at work. He's like, yeah, you catching them? I'm like, nah, dude, I'm out. I'm gone. Like, I'm gonna fish for like 5 more minutes. I've caught one fish. It was like a 10-incher. And I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you how long ago, it was probably 2009 or 10. And I had been on Shad Fly Basin, I believe, with Holman. And so he knows what I was doing there. And it was kind of when like I had figured out the swim jig deal probably before most guys had ever figured out the way I fished a swim jig. Back, I had it to myself for a couple of years. But I had one tied on and I just started throwing it like, what's it going to matter? You like in the grass. At 5 o'clock, Brent gets off work and comes and meets me at the lake because I had already made the phone call to him because I had already caught 50 in the grass right back over where I'd thrown a freaking rattle trap
Yeah.
all day. And I was catching them where I could, it was so clear. I was seeing big schools of like 5 and 6 pound. Like I'd catch one out of 2 and 3 foot of water. I'd see schools of like 25 and 6 pounders. They were up there the whole time. And I caught them, and I'm just going, you know, like that was the deal back then. And I think they were up there, and I've seen it other times on Rayburn where like you kind of mess around the grass. I remember one time in October, it got cold and we were kind of fishing and fishing. And all of a sudden I catch one, and there's like a group of 50 of them underneath our boat. And like we caught them for like probably about 3 minutes where they didn't leave, like in 3 foot of water, a school of them, like they were pushing up. Schools of giant ones were pushing up because it got cold. And that happened back in the day. I don't know if that happens. Like it doesn't, I understand the springtime, but I'm telling you, like, it doesn't seem like that's happening anymore. It doesn't seem like that, those waves of fish or those schools or what, for whatever reason, because whatever Mike McClellan was doing on Table Rock, throwing a rock crawler, you know, wiggle wart back in the day, that shouldn't change.
No.
That shouldn't change just because you know fish are out deep. Those fish out deep have always been out there. We just didn't know how to catch them or didn't know how to find them and whatever. That's the only part that bothers me, is that it's not like we're redefining fishing. What we're figuring out is where fish were that we never knew how to find. But that doesn't mean they stopped using the grass or they stopped using those channel bins on Table Rock. Like they'll always use those channel bins. There's a reason they do, but they
Well,
are
I
not
mean,
as good as they
But
used to.
I will say this, like, and that Todd, you're gonna agree with me here. I know you have some places on Rayburn that you have absolutely caught the biggest fish, the biggest
Yeah,
bags
I know
of
where
your
you're going with
entire
this.
life. And I have places there on Rayburn. I have places on Toledo that, like, day in and day out, 10 years ago, I could crush them like big bags. And then now, like the last 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, I hadn't even got a bite off of it. Not even
True,
seen a fish.
true,
I
but
just think as more people fish, as more electronics come out, as all these things change, everything just evolves. I mean,
true, but won't
you
you
know,
agree though that whatever you caught them off of, like back then, you know, somewhere on the lake, you can still catch them off that same type of deal.
absolutely. But
That's
finding something different is so
right.
hard.
But I can go fish some of these lakes, and the grasses, I can fish the entire grass line all the way around.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what
I
like,
just don't. I think in your case, I just don't think it got cold enough yet. I bet if you went out there this week, I bet if you went out there tomorrow and fished the same stretches you fished last week or whenever you were, because this cold front rolled in. If you went out there tomorrow, I promise you'd go catch them.
dude, I'm just telling you, that place is good from September. Like it's never not good.
I know.
I've
I'm
never
surprised.
understood. And they're out there.
But you had to lock one bait in your hand the whole time. You weren't allowed to throw anything else, and that also is part of the
Well,
deal.
I did kind of throw some things. I kind of messed around a little bit. Maybe you're right.
Of course, I'm right.
I don't know.
Okay, you had to go throw a red-eyed shad. Is that something that is that on the list of 5? Is that
No,
even the list of 5?
because in my story I just said in November I went through a rattle trap in November 10 years ago and had caught 1 or 2 fish and then went back through there with a swim jig.
So that's what I'm saying. It's not even in your top 5 right now.
But
Now maybe in February or something, but like in the fall, it's just
I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't even go back out. I wanted to go fish the grass a little bit more. I did go fish the grass the next day when I caught them out there deep. I did go fish it a little bit down some stretches. I did catch 1 or 2, but I didn't like. But I couldn't go fish anymore. I was tired of fishing up there in it. I will admit. I don't know. But it is crazy what y'all are saying. Like the whole deal is interesting.
It is.
And I don't foresee it changing. I think it's just going to keep evolving. I mean, look at Rayburn. Like Rayburn has changed.
Yeah, but I can tell you
different.
the reason on Rayburn why it's changed.
Yeah.
One reason.
It's crazy.
It's one reason that Hallman brought it up. Now, I don't know if it's hard for Hallman to bring it up because he's not on Table Rock every year in November, December. But I'm telling you on Rayburn, because I don't need live scope or any of that stuff. I had it. All you need is a 2D sonar. The one thing on Rayburn that I've never seen is the amount of shad on Rayburn.
Yeah.
So what we have said is more fish on Rayburn. Like we have joked around about perch on Rayburn that I don't think a bass has eaten a perch on Rayburn in like 3 years.
Yeah.
Like they don't even know
Really?
man, they don't even back in the day you'd find, like perch in the grass, perch beds, all these things. Dude, I don't know of a single person that's caught a fish off a perch bed in years. Like they don't even care about them. It's like all shad all the time, no matter what. We've seen tournaments matter. Like it's a crazy, there's more shad in that lake than we've ever seen. And I think they're just sitting there going, we don't have to go chase a perch. We got, 14 billion shad out here.
Just
swimming in
turn your
front of our
head
lake.
and eat a shad.
It's amazing. And I think that's just changed that lake, and it'll change back. Like
Yeah.
we've had more white bass than we've ever had. Like there's some other fish that are showing up, like more of them because of that.
Yeah.
But it'll change. Like I think that's because the floods we've had over the last 2 or 3 years and the amount of high water we've had when the shad spawn.
Yeah.
And they've had like perfect shad spawns, like perfect.
Which that's not really a terrible thing.
No, it's not a bad
honestly.
thing.
Yeah, it's
No,
not a
it's
bad
good
thing.
for the
It could be
lake.
worse. You could have no shad.
No shad.
And,
You could be
and
like
that would be a way-
Amstead.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all your fish at Amstead are like that
And like
long.
this thick.
Yeah. And their shad are like, you can't even see them. So, I mean, no, it's not a bad thing. Don't have anything. Me and Andrew talked, we might actually go fishing next week together.
Where y'all gonna go?
We don't know.
We hadn't decided yet.
We hadn't even got that far. We just,
No, we're like, hey, you want to go fishing? I think we need to go film some stuff. Okay, let's just plan on like Tuesday to Thursday running that range and see what happens.
Weather's supposed to be nice this coming week.
oh,
Watson-
70s. 70s on next
Watson's
week.
trying to get me to come back to Table Rock and spend a couple of days up there. Table Rock's only, I did the math, it's only about 4.5 hours away. So
Ooh, that's not bad at all.
I might have to get some more of that before I'm done.
How far are you from Rayburn? I don't even remember. Is it 6 hours?
I want to say it's about seven and a
6.5.
half.
Oh,
Six,
well,
7.
I don't know where, not from your house, from Grand.
Yeah, because
Mhm.
mine is like, or at least from when we were in Tulsa to Hemphill, it was like 6.5 on the dot. So
What's that town that you're in right there, Todd? That the house is at?
Zavala.
Zavala?
Zavala. Let's see what Zavala is.
Zavala.
Zavala, Texas. 7 hours, 6 hours and 59 minutes
Yeah.
from my
That's
house. A
about
7 hour drive. It's a good, much as we drive, it doesn't seem that bad, because I feel like I can piddle around here until 11 o'clock in the morning, get in the truck and be there by 6. But it takes up the majority of my day.
It's a day. I mean, when you look at
Well-
anything over about 7 to 8 hours is a day, unless you leave at 4 a.m. or something.
It's not
Yeah.
it's an easy drive if you're just going down there to fish a tournament like what we do. It's not that, it's different when it's like, hey, I'm gonna go down there for 2 days.
Yeah.
Then it's kind of like that ends
Well,
up
yeah,
being
it,
kind
it
of-
takes 4 days out of your life because it's really a day of driving down
Correct.
there, 2 days of being there and a day of driving back.
but if you're gonna be down there for 4 days, 3-4 days of practice, 2 or 3 days in a tournament, you're like, this is easy. But just to go like, hey, why don't we all meet up, me and Hallman? I mean, even like Texoma for me is, God, I'd probably fish Texoma so much more, but it's 3.5.
Mhm.
It's like 3.5
Well-
hours, and it's not the best 3.5 hours.
That's
It's
the way Table Rock's not easy either. Like it's easy to get
Oh,
to
no.
Missouri, but as soon as you get to that Arkansas, Missouri, then it's just
horrible,
terrible.
horrible.
Well, and see, I think that's part of the problem. Whenever I lived in Hemphill before, and now living here again, is you have Rayburn, Toledo, Nacogdoches amongst like at least another 6 lakes, half a dozen lakes that are all within an hour's drive of where I'm at right now. And for me to want to even drive to Texoma, that's 3.5 hours away,
Yeah.
or anywhere else. I mean, truly, like even Amistad, and I love Amistad, but you don't even want to go there. Like,
But Amistad's further than Grand Lake in Oklahoma.
yeah, but I don't like Grand. I like Amistad.
No, I understand, but my point is like I'm still in Texas, and it's still it's an 8-hour drive for me every time I go to Amstead or Falcon. The choke deal, I mean, at 5.
Yeah.
But shoot, for my buddies Brent and some of those guys that live in Houston, dude, that's nothing. It's like 2.5, 3 for them.
I can get to Del
I mean-
Rio at 7, so I can get there about the same time y'all can.
Yeah.
That's insane, dude. It takes me 8. It's 465 miles. I know exactly how far it is.
Yeah.
You can get there. You can get there quicker than I can, and I'm in Texas.
Yeah.
That's insane to me.
Well, I know I've had a bunch of comments, a bunch of messages asking when our crew was getting back together. So let it be known that Todd and I will be jumping in the boat together. And for anybody that is wondering, we will be traveling together. Hallman and Pangrak and I will be at all 9 opens together, and Todd will be with us at the Centrals. So, and that's a fantastic schedule.
Just not the
Probably
Red
for
River.
another time. Oh, you're not going to the Red River?
No.
Oh.
I've already decided I'm going to pay all my money up just for the Red River, and I'm just going to go sit in the parking lot while it's going on and just have them weigh in and be like, hey, I basically saved money by not going out there and fishing. And I'm not going to catch anything anyway. So
I've had some more confirmation from some of my buddies that live down there, and like, there's not a fish in that place.
dude, hey, so
Somebody even said, well, what if you just hang around the takeoff and just fish around there? And that's fine. There's no tournaments out there anymore. So there's no release.
there's no
There's
tournaments down
nothing
there.
there.
Nothing's getting released. I talked
Well,
to
and there's 150 people with that plan right now. Literally, they're like,
yeah.
"Oh, I got just got idle out, and I'll just fish right there the whole time." I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, all the other 150 boats are going to do
Well,
that.
yeah,
exact same thing.
but you have to have a tournament that goes out of that to
Yeah.
release fish there.
Yeah,
I
that's
talked
what
to Aaron.
Aaron's. I did. That's what I heard through the grapevine was Aaron. Yeah.
Aaron Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aaron Johnson's like, so I talked to him the whole time at Pickwick, and he was like, he told me that he was like, I don't know, I live 4 miles from the lake. I haven't fished in 5 years. Now I saw Clark Green the other day. I think he lives a couple miles from it, and he said he hasn't fished it in like 4 or 5. Not that my point is people live by that place.
Yeah.
and don't fish.
Every local that I know that lives there, they never fish it. They'd rather drive an hour and a half to Toledo, and it's fishing terrible. And they're like, I'd rather drive to Toledo or fish a couple like Caddo and some of those other places. They don't even launch their boat on the river anymore. Like it's non-existent.
One random person, I couldn't tell you who it was, made a comment like, "Oh, you could probably go out there if you had to and catch 15 pounds or something."
What?
They were like, but granted, no one's been out there and blah blah blah. I'm like, that you mean maybe go out there and catch a limit because no one's been on the lake in like 4 months. But other than that, he's like, oh, and he said, oh, you put a bunch of guys out there after a day or two, that's all going to go away. And he could be right. Maybe you could go catch some 3-pounders if you knew where some were, maybe. But like you said, that's only because no one's made a cast there in 5 months. It's like fishing a pond in some of those places,
Yeah.
And one time you go through it, it's over.
Well, I mean, we got Ross Barnett on the schedule at least, and I think that'll be a good one. And I think Rayburn is going to be a decent one. It just depends how cold it is and if there's grass, if they'll stop spraying for 5 minutes. Or I saw there was a spray boat out there yesterday. So
yeah, but for whatever reason, when they spray, I saw some guys spraying another lake. I talked to him. I kind of halfway know him. Like I said, hey, what are y'all doing? He's like, see that little patch? We went over there and sprayed that patch. And then we went over there and sprayed, like it was a 50-yard stretch, or not.
But I just don't understand why they're doing it. Like
but that's Texas Parks and Wildlife that went and sprayed that patch of Salvania.
Yeah,
that's all they did was spray that little. They didn't go, hey, there might be some Salvania over here, and I'll just go down the bank. They went and sprayed that and left everything else alone. I have zero problem with that.
Yeah.
So if you got guys that know what they're doing, that's Texas Parks and Wildlife. They do a lot better job spraying stuff because they know what they're looking for. They're not being. It's a different deal.
It is a different
Rayburn's going to be good. I think Ross Barnett's going to be, fishing wise, will probably be pretty good.
Oh, I agree completely. I think it'll be really good. So
let's close this down. We all got stuff to do. Andrew's got to run. I got to run.
I got to go pick up Kid.
I got to go pick up.
Hey, I don't know what everyone's doing. Like, we're probably going to get another one of these before Christmas.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we got to have holiday ones.
But are we gonna do a New Year's one?
Got to do holidays. We got to do Christmas, and like I'm gonna get in here with eggnog and stuff. The whole nine. Yeah. I have some decorations behind me. Maybe
I've got decorations behind me. Look right there.
We'll get some lights. Get some lights.
Elf.
All right.
He does have an elf behind him.
I do. And there's like a half blown up reindeer.
Mine's in the. Why am I gonna turn it around? We have an elf in a tree. That's all we got right now. No lights on it. Just a tree.
Our elf hasn't moved in 2 days. I got to get better. I got caught this morning by a 6-year-old.
I
Yeah,
don't
and
know.
Els
I
hadn't
did
moved in
good.
2 days. She was very upset.
Hey, and I know we got to go and everything. Mine had a complete meltdown because his grandparents showed him some videos of elves actually moving that were caught on security cameras, and he
Oh,
got so terrified that we had to go lock them in a safe because he thought they were going to come mess with him
Oh
when he was
man.
sleeping.
that's so
My-
good.
I will say my boy found the box it came in. I don't know why it was under our bed. And he was like, "What is this?" I'm like, "That's a puzzle. It's a puzzle." And I was like, "You don't remember doing that puzzle?"
Get out of your Christmas presents. Get out of your
He
presents.
couldn't even remember. And it was an old box of like 7 years ago. And I was like, "That's a puzzle." He's like, "Oh, okay."
We're all going to get caught one day. There's
Oh
no
yeah.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
All
All
right.
right.
Well, guys, y'all have a good one.
All right.
All
See you,
right.
boys.
That's it.